Hi everyone, Heather here with astrologywithheather.com, and I am back with another weekly forecast. This one is for Monday, June 15th, all the way through to the 21st of June of 2020. And this week is a powerful week in the astrology, per usual. I think pretty much every week of 2020 I'm going to be saying that. So maybe I should think of some new descriptive words so it doesn't get redundant here. But yeah, we have another big, crazy week going on. Luckily, some of that intensity from the Mars-Neptune conjunction is calming down. Venus is now visible. And one of the things that I mentioned in that recent webinar that I did with Ksenia and with Rita when I was talking about the global astrology is that, as soon as Venus went invisible, we saw a lot of social unrest and a lot of communities hurting as a result of that. And so, I talked about the Venus retrograde and the North Node being sort of building up community infrastructure and locally owned businesses and things like that. And that started to happen, and then all of a sudden everything turned to chaos. So I'm hoping that this is where we find some sort of resolution. We start to get some clarity. We start to come back into balance, and we start to find more of that love and connection and open communication, and that things start to level out a little bit on that regard. However, we do have some stuff going on this week. It's not going to be quite as intense in a sort of disruptive, violent way. It's going to be more intense in that this is kind of a period of rearranging that we're entering into here, where people are going to be making a lot of big changes in their lives. This eclipse that's happening at the end of this week into the weekend is hugely powerful in the sign of Cancer. It's a very strong eclipse. It's going to transcend Cancer and Sagittarius as well, because the North Node is actually in Sagittarius, even though this new moon solar eclipse is actually in the sign of Cancer at 0 degrees 21 minutes. It's barely in Cancer. However, when you have any planets at the 0 or 1 degree of any sign, it's a super focused, hyper concentrated energy, and it can be quite powerful. And so this is the time where a lot of the new beginnings that we've been preparing for in our lives over the course of the last almost 2 years will start to be made manifest, or will finally, I should say, be made manifest in a big, powerful way for a lot of people. This is like the last chance to make those changes, to start fresh, to jump into those new beginnings. And the beginnings that we need to set into, the path that we need to move on, as always with the eclipses, will be readily apparent. And sometimes we won't feel like we have any choice in the matter because we're going to be thrown into it. And that's a big eclipse thing. Anytime we have a strong eclipse like this, it's a time where fate steps in, where we have a lot of strange energy, a lot of eerie signs and synchronicities. This sort of sense that what is unfolding was meant to happen, and we almost don't have any control over what's going on or what the outcome is. We just kind of have to roll with it. And sometimes we do, especially if this is hitting you quite hard in your chart, which we'll get into when we talk about all 12 signs. But the main energy of an eclipse is especially a new moon solar eclipse. The main energy with the new moon solar eclipse is always one of new beginnings. It's starting fresh. It's jumping headfirst into some sort of new direction that we're really being pulled into hard and fast. And so this is going to be one of those eclipses too, where the nodes, the North Node in particular is going to actually be very close to the eclipse point. And so that usually indicates that the manifestation from the eclipse occurs much more rapidly and it's much more apparent, as opposed to when the North Node is a little bit farther. Things can manifest in a way that's a little bit weaker, a little bit less direct, and it can take a little bit more time sometimes. I think this one we're actually going to be seeing a lot of major transitions that are happening even amidst the eclipse season. That doesn't mean everything changes right at the eclipse season. It's the eclipse sets something in motion, right? And on an individual level, there's this sense that we're being set in motion towards something that is in alignment with what we are destined to align ourselves with. And so it's kind of like it feels exciting, it feels new, but it also feels scary. It feels like something we've never done before, and it feels like we don't have a full sense of how this is going to pan out. And so that's where people can have a lot of hesitation and resistance. The other thing too that's going on here that I should mention is that this eclipse is in a very, very, very tight inconjunction or quincunx aspect with Saturn at the last degrees in retrograde in the sign of Aquarius. So Saturn's at 0 degrees, 41 minutes. And so it's super, super, super tight in this inconjunction. Saturn in an inconjunction always indicates the need to assert boundaries. It's usually showing us in a big way where we are taking on too much of the burden of responsibilities for other people's stuff, for other people's baggage, for other people's either emotional baggage or for their physical responsibilities. It shows us where maybe we've been doing too much and neglecting our own needs, our own well-being, our own personal responsibilities. And this is especially going to be apparent on an emotional level, on a comfort zone level. And so this is going to show us collectively and also on an individual level where we've been extending our comfort zones a little bit too much, where we've been reaching out and taking responsibility for other people's problems too much, to the extent that it's been having a negative effect on us personally. So this is a time where boundaries are hugely important. You want to make sure that you're reassessing your boundaries and that the boundaries you have emotionally, especially, so carrying other people's emotional baggage, supporting them and comforting them and taking care of them. Those are all sort of Cancerian types of words, nurturing other people, taking responsibility for that type of energy where we've been overextending ourselves and overdoing it, where maybe we need to draw a hard line in the sand with certain people or certain situations in our lives. That's going to be part of this energy too. And this can come up in a big faded way. It's kind of like maybe some people will have a point of, especially with what's been going on globally, I think an emotional burnout. And it's kind of like, I can't take this anymore. I can't hold this responsibility for this person, this family, this event, this situation all at once and still take care of myself and my own needs. That's what we're going to be really evaluating here. With this eclipse energy. So it is a fresh start. It is a new beginning. But in order to move into that new space, we need to reevaluate our boundaries. We need to take a hard look at that and draw that line in the sand, put up that wall, put up that barrier wherever it needs to happen in our lives. The other thing that's happening this week, of course, is Mercury moves into retrograde. And so Mercury will be in retrograde for the next 3 weeks. It goes retrograde on Wednesday the 17th or on the 18th, depending on where you are in the world. If you are, in the United States, it's going to be on the 17th late in the night. If you are in Europe or in Australia, it should be on the 18th. So it really just depends. And this Mercury retrograde is not like the diciest of retrogrades for just kind of on a general level, but it is going to bring with it the typical Mercury retrograde energy. And this is also in Cancer. So there's a lot of cardinal activation. And again, this has to do with new beginnings, but this could be us reevaluating something that we've initiated or jumped into over the past couple of years with all of the eclipses that have been happening in the sign of Cancer, having to go back and revisit it, re-edit, reevaluate. This is usually something that we're internalizing. And so there's going to be a lot of kind of going back and forth in our heads around something that was set in motion, most likely in the past 2 years. So that's what we're going to be getting into here with this Mercury retrograde energy. And again, a big part of the week, but really this is like a 3-week energy. So we're going to be experiencing this for a little bit of time here. And as always with the Mercury retrograde, there are certain considerations, certain things you don't want to do and certain things you do want to do. And I do have a free Mercury retrograde survival guide that's available on my website. And so you can find that link down in the description below, where I went into just my most simplistic but best tips and tricks for getting through any Mercury retrograde, unscarred. So yeah, you can dive into that if that's something that's interesting to you. All right. So I feel like I did a good job covering the general energy. I think, collectively, we're going to be kind of going through a period of setting those boundaries. I think some of the craziness that has been going on the past couple of weeks will start to calm down a little bit. And I think that, you know, as a society and as a whole, we'll be moving into a new direction. But this is especially going to be you moving in a new direction in your own personal life in a very specific way aligned with your astrology. All right, and so before we get into the forecast for all 12 signs, I do want to make just a couple of really quick announcements. The first one is my Navigating Career and Business webinar, which was a donation-based webinar that I did in collaboration with Ksenia Moore, who is a brilliant evolutionary astrologer. I highly recommend you check her out and visit her YouTube channel, as well as my personal business coach, Rita Perea, who did a brilliant talk. Oh my goodness, I was super impressed with both of them and everything that came out of this collaboration. I love collaborating because all sorts of stuff comes up, and it's always something different than what I would have expected, but it's like it's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. And so I feel like this was a very helpful series, and I've gotten a lot of great feedback on it. And you can still access the series. You can access the recordings. The link is down in the description below. Again, this is a donation-based webinar, so pay what you can or what you feel is appropriate, and you can get all of the information and have access to it for, you know, as long as I exist as a website, which is hopefully forever. And a lot of this information transcends just this time period, because we talked about how to figure out you know, how to determine the personal placements in your birth chart that will help you to align not only with satisfaction in your career, but with your life's purpose and whether or not those things might look a little different. We also jumped into practical tips with Rita for navigating change and overcoming, you know, obstacles that might be coming up now, but again, into the future. Change is the only constant in life. And so this advice is going to withstand, you know, the test of time here. And so that link, again, is down in the description below. The only other thing I want to mention is that I still have my electional astrology forecast for the summer. If you want to plan important events, important changes, things you want to initiate, you can find that down in the description below. And if you aren't already doing so, by the way, follow me on Instagram, because I'm planning some stuff. I'm not going to get into it just yet, but I'm going to be starting to work on some new content, hopefully around health and medical astrology, because this is something I've studied and I've had a lot of personal experience with, and I'd like to start you know, doing a little bit of teaching around that here on this channel, and a little bit of sharing when it comes to my personal experience, which is something I've been kind of holding back on just because it is so personal, and I don't know how people are going to react. And then also when you get into things like nutrition, people have like very dogmatic viewpoints, and I just don't know if I want to jump into that and get wrapped up in it, but I think it's important because, you know, I went through a really intense healing process. I was very, very sick in my early to mid 20s, and I was able to come out of that. And I know many others have chronic illness and have had these experiences, and I feel like I can help, and I feel like that's part of what I'm kind of supposed to do with astrology at some point. So anyway, follow me on Instagram. In the near future, I think I'm going to start incorporating some of this information. So I'm going to be sharing it with you in bits and pieces, and I'm also going to be starting to do some Q&A stuff on there. So if you want to get your astrology questions answered. All right, so let's get into the forecast now for all 12 signs, beginning with the sign of Aries. All right, and so let me adjust a little bit here. I need a way bigger desk, you guys. I'm going to just make that happen and have my entire office space a giant desk. It's just going to be desk, that's it. Anyway, so for Aries and for Aries rising. So for you guys, I'm going to start actually for everyone with the Mercury retrograde, because that's starting first. And then I'm going to get into the eclipse energy, which is the biggest, most potent energy. Mercury retrogrades obviously happen 3 times a year. And, you know, it's kind of like a common thing, even though it does tend to be a big deal. And actually something I wanted to mention before I get into this about the retrogrades and why they're so potent when it's like an inner planet, because right now we have 2 inner planets retrograde. We have Venus and we have Mercury, and then later in the year we'll have Mars. These inner planets usually just gloss over a part of our charts very quickly, and when they make aspects to our natal planets, it's very quick and straightforward, and it's done, right? It lasts a few days, maybe a couple weeks, and then we're over it. So it's not as impactful in terms of their long-term effects, usually, unless there's other stuff going on, which I'm not going to get into here. But the retrogrades prolong that experience and drag it out, so you have to pay attention to it, and it does tend to create a more longer-term change. Even with Mercury retrograde, which is only a few weeks, it still prolongs that experience. And so that's part of the reason why these inner planet retrogrades are such a big deal versus the outer planets, which happen, once a year, and they don't do quite as much, or they don't seem to be quite as impactful in the moment. So anyway, I just kind of wanted to point that out there. With the Mercury retrograde, it's like a prolonged Mercury experience in the sign of Cancer, where it sort of makes it 3 times closer to the Earth, and it takes 3 times longer to transit Cancer. And so anyway, with Mercury going retrograde for Aries and Aries rising, this is going to happen from 14 to 5 degrees. And so if you have your ascendant, sun or moon, anywhere from 14 to 5 degrees, you're going to be feeling this the most. You're going to be feeling this quite strongly. And this is going to be an energy where, you might have to have some difficult conversations or revisit some ideas, some thoughts around your family situation, around your relationship with your parents, or around your living situation. There could be something that you're reevaluating or rethinking in your home environment. This would be a great time to rearrange your furniture or reorganize your home in some way, or to reevaluate an important agreement or contract, but not necessarily to move forward with something with an important agreement or contract related to your property. This also is going to be, at the end of this week, the new moon eclipse in the sign of Cancer. And so if you are like a 0 degree Aries, 0 to 5 degrees, you're going to be feeling this very, very strongly. And this is going to cause potentially a very dramatic change, or a dramatic, fated, synchronistic new beginning, where you're going to be pulled into a new direction in your home environment. You might move. Like, I think a lot of Aries people with those early degree Aries, and just Aries in general, might be considering moving or changing something about their home pretty dramatically with this eclipse energy. And this might actually reverberate for those 0 to 5 degrees Aries rising people across all areas of life. You might be making a lot of major life changes. It might be stemming from something behind the scenes, but really this is going to be about you changing your entire reality. This is going to be you changing who you are and the way that you show up in the world, your goals and directions in life. This is going to be you maybe potentially changing something about your appearance or your health, or having some health changes that you have to address or deal with. This is going to change your relationships pretty dramatically, or this could be a finalization of some changes that have already been set in motion that finally you jump into in all of these areas. And finally, this could impact your career. You might have to focus a little bit less on your career and a little bit more on what's going on behind the scenes and what you want to come home to. This is about, what do you want to come home to? What are you being pulled toward when it comes to your living situation, your family dynamic, and how can you, as quickly and as seamlessly as possible, move into that? It's going to be challenging, but you can get there. This is also you asserting new boundaries when it comes to your home, family, living situation. And so if you don't have good boundaries with your family members, this is a time where that's going to come up in a very faded way, and you're going to have to put your foot down and draw that line in the sand. All right, and for Taurus rising. So for you guys, Mercury is going retrograde in your 3rd house, which is the house of communication. This is always a fun one. This is usually the most retrograde-y Mercury retrograde, because the 3rd house impacts a lot of your daily activities. It's your commute, it's your interactions with everyone in your community, it's your day-to-day interactions, even if you are interacting on a regular basis with people on the internet, text messages, phone calls, emails, all of that, electronics, computers, by the way. I know that Aquarius is supposed to rule technology and all of that, but I've seen time and time again with Mercury retrograde in the 3rd house in people's charts, computer issues specifically. So just kind of back everything up, like times 20. But this is a great time for you to revisit old relationships and bring them back into your current reality, revisit old conversations in relationships, and you're going to be doing a lot of reevaluation when it comes to your interpersonal connections that will have very positive results and will probably go quite well for you, especially if you're a Taurus rising between that 5 and 14 degrees. The other thing that you're going to be having here is a new moon solar eclipse in your third house. And this is the house that has to do with, again, communication. This could be you finally going back and sort of doing something involving initiating a new educational pursuit or a new program that either you're teaching or attending. This could be you finally putting that finishing touch on your manuscript and deciding that you're going to put it out there. This could be you launching something really important involving marketing, communication, writing, teaching, education, or community involvement or support in general. But this can also show where you've overextended yourself when it comes to communication or education or your community connections and involvement, where you're taking on emotional responsibility for other people's stuff, or maybe you're just over communicating or allowing yourself to be flooded with too much communication, which will be apparent especially with that Mercury retrograde. And you need to draw a hard line in the sand and say, after 6 p.m., my phone is off, my email is off, I am not contacting anyone, do not call me. Something along those lines where you're not, or that this is not necessarily my place, right? Where people are coming to you for support and having these conversations where you're like, this is too much, it's too overwhelming, this is not my place, I'm enabling you as opposed to helping you by allowing myself to be this like shoulder to lean on, when really you need to be addressing your own problems. And so you might need to have those conversations. And those conversations could even be with like your siblings, but this could be especially work related, where it seems like there's a hard way to, like, it's going to be almost impossible to create that balance and to draw those lines. But you're going to have to let go of something and make a compromise on your end in order to get what you need and to have those good boundaries so you're being taken care of as well as the needs of other people, maybe clients or your bosses or something involving business. All right, and for Gemini and Gemini rising, if you, so let's start with the Mercury retrograde. So Mercury is retrograding in your second house. This is a time where you might have to revisit or reevaluate your budget or something related to your finances. Not the best time to lock in terms of like signing on the dotted line for some sort of financing or important financial endeavor, because you might have to go back and reevaluate it or the terms might change. However, this is a good time to rebalance your budget and just reevaluate and internalize the way your relationship with money so it can be improved moving forward. The other thing that's going on is this eclipse / new moon in the sign of Cancer. However, if you are an N degree Gemini, so anywhere from 25 to 30 degrees, and especially at that 29th degree, this might be a huge, just incredibly impactful eclipse for you where everything changes. So if you're somebody especially who was born on the cusp, you're going to be having this solar eclipse as part of your solar return this year, and this is going to be a life-changing year, a year that everything changes and everything is turned upside down, and you have new beginning after new beginning, and your whole world is different afterwards as a result of this. And even if it's not your solar return and you're a Gemini rising, this is a period where you're going to be shifting focus. You're going to be moving in a new direction. And this is going to be the start of something that you're going to be continuing to develop and grow over the next couple of years with the North Node transiting your sign. This is about your personal development. This is about you focusing on your own needs and your own self-interest in a lot of different ways. And this is also going to be about your financial well-being and starting something new that might impact your finances. You could have a new job or a fresh start in some way, or some sort of financial opportunity that comes up that's very synchronistic, or this could be an opportunity that you've been working toward for quite some time and it's finally developed and it's finally time to move into it. I would say, be a little cautious with that Mercury retrograde, but if the timing is right and you have to do it, this is something with the eclipses that you can't necessarily control. But I would say a lot of financial and personal changes going on for Gemini. This is a time where your whole world can be turned upside down. You can move into a whole new direction. You might lose certain relationships in order to readjust your focus. So you're focusing on what you need to create in this lifetime, what your path is, what your destiny is. And it's like your whole world will be turned upside down. But I think in a more positive way, this eclipse is not the most negative eclipse that has happened. Out of the three 3 eclipses this eclipse season, even though this is the strongest eclipse, I would say that this is the most positive in terms of the alignments and the energy. But this is also where you're going to have to draw some really hard boundaries, especially financially. And so if you've been loaning out money or giving money to your friends, family members, being the financial support system for people you care about, you might have to stop doing that, so that way you can pursue your own goals and your own interest when it comes to your finances. And so you might have to have some hard conversations over the next couple of weeks. All right, for Cancer and for Cancer rising, it's all about you, Cancer. So for those who have actually let's start with the Mercury retrograde. So for those who have your sun, moon, or rising between 14 and 5 degrees, this Mercury retrograde is going to be impacting you the most. And this is going to be a time where you're going to be reevaluating your place in the world, your goals, your orientation, your direction in life. You're going to be reevaluating who you are and the way that you show up. You could be communicating things in a way that you feel is very clear over the next few weeks, but other people might not see it that way. And so there can be a lot of miscommunication, confusion, things of that nature that you feel like are directed at you, but are really coming from you, if that makes sense. And so look at your place in the situation when communication issues do come up. Beyond that, though, this is about you reevaluating everything and anything involving the first house, and that also includes your health and your body image and your self-image. And so you might be rethinking the way that you treat your body, or the way that you care for yourself in terms of your physical appearance and your body care and things like that as well. I wouldn't necessarily go and get like a new haircut or something like that until Mercury goes direct. Hair is not necessarily a Mercury thing, that's more of a Venus thing. But you can never be too careful there. There could be a miscommunication and it gets cut wrong or too short or something like that. Other than that, though, I think it's going to just be a period of self-evaluation and introspection. The new moon solar eclipse is happening in your sign, and especially if you are a Cancer sun, moon, or rising, with your sun, moon, or rising sign, at the beginning degrees between 0 and 5, and especially at that 0 degree, this is a time where you're going to be having really powerful new beginnings, where your whole life can shift in a completely different direction. And it's like the skies open up and the stars align, and these signs and synchronicities and people even show up to pull you in the right direction. You're going to be getting very, very strong messages this week. So pay attention to those messages, because they are meant to show you the direction you need to move into. And if you resist, it's going to make it harder. So, just being honest with yourself about, hey, even though this might not be the change I thought I wanted, it's clearly the change I need. So I'm going to roll with that. This could also be pulling you away from important relationships in your life, so you can focus more on your self-development and changing your direction. This is also a time where you're going to have really great boundaries, really strong boundaries. You cannot be the emotional support system for everyone in your life. You can't be the person that everyone's coming to in crisis right now, because you need to focus on you. And so drawing that hard line in the sand is going to be very important, especially if there's somebody who's wielding power over you or trying to manipulate you in some way. For Leo and for Leo rising, Mercury is going retrograde in your 12th house. And I always think that's an interesting placement, because when Mercury goes retrograde, it's kind of like the energy of going between worlds, because Mercury in the mythology is the one god that can go and deliver messages between the physical reality, heaven, and hell, right? So Mercury can go everywhere. Mercury is pretty neutral. It's just delivering information. And the 12th house is sort of an unseen realm. It's like the deep recesses of your subconscious. And so it's almost like you have to do this subconscious reevaluation, or you have to dive deep into your psyche to pull something out and to become much more clear on it before you move forward. This is a time where meditation is really important. Spending time in solitude is very important. This is going to be a deeply introspective time for Leos, where you're going to want to turn inward. This is a great time for some sort of retreat, especially like a spiritual retreat or something that's going to help you to reassess and reevaluate your connection to the non-physical realms. And these are all things that you can do right now, even if you can't physically go on a retreat because you're still in a restrictive area of the world. You can literally just take a retreat at home or turn inward, spend some time. This would be one of the best times to get away from the busyness of day-to-day life and to just take a social media or digital detox and spend time with yourself. If you don't do this, you're not going to come out of this much better for it. But if you do this, you're going to get some surprising insight and some surprising messages that might help you to let go of past karma or certain energies that have been really bogging you down that you're completely unaware of right now. Dreams, of course, pay attention to messages that come in through visions, downloads, meditations, things like that. This could be you having to revisit some sort of issue involving like hospitals, ashrams, spiritual retreat centers, rehab centers, things like that. I've even seen sometimes like hospital bills coming around, even though this is not a monetary house, but it's like having to revisit that experience in some way. The new moon is happening the new moon eclipse, I should say, is happening in your 12th house as well. This is, even though this is a very strong energy toward new beginnings, with the eclipse happening at 0 degrees, it's kind of like this first burst of energy where you're just wanting to jump into something and you're kind of like a newbie at it and it's exciting and it's fresh, but you don't really know what the hell you're doing. For you, it's also going to be very much about endings. It's going to be about what do you need to clear away in order to move forward into something new, in order to stop focusing on, this deep sort of introspective realm and to start putting yourself back out there and going back out into the world and creating these connections that are very fated and karmic that you need to start creating right now. You might align, with a soul group or with certain friendships this week or even into the next few weeks or few months that are just very karmic and feel very synchronistic. And this eclipse is going to be that starting point, but you have to let go of some old hangups and you have to draw really clear boundaries with certain people in your life, especially in one-on-one close relationships. If they're getting in your way, if they are not respecting your personal space and your need for solitude and that need to go into that realm of introspection, you need to draw a hard line in the sand this week. All right, and for Virgo and for Virgo rising. So for you guys, Mercury is going to be retrograding in your 11th house. This is going to be you reevaluating your relationship with your friends, your social networks, groups of people that you surround yourself with by choice. You're going to have to take a hard look at your crew and who you're connecting with and how they're influencing your mindset about things and whether or not they're on the same page with you and whether or not you want to continue with these friendships. Old friendships can come back around, so that's something to look forward to. Usually that's a positive thing in the 11th house. And it's going to be a time where you might either reintegrate those friendships or they might just be coming in for a reason to deliver a message to you. But this is about getting clear on who you want to take with you moving forward, because we're kind of running out of time here and you need to become... You just need to become clear. You need to know who's supporting you, who has your back, who's on your side, and who's not. And that's going to be part of the eclipse energy as well. This eclipse energy is sort of this final push to move forward into a brand new beginning when it comes to groups and organizations. Maybe you've been thinking about starting some sort of club or some sort of group or an online network of some kind, or doing something really innovative or new or exciting that supports other people involving social media or the internet or connections with groups. But you are not having good boundaries with your work. It could also just be that, you want to start something new in terms of just spending more time with your friends or finding your tribe, finding the right people to align yourself with who are supportive and who you can support in the right ways. And you're just busy with work or with health issues or with your day-to-day routines to the extent that you're not able to socialize. Now's the time to draw those boundaries and say, I work 9 to 5. After 5 p.m., do not call me. I'm done having these health issues. I'm getting back on track. I'm working on this, and I'm not going to let that set me back from engaging with my friends. I'm going to do that in whatever way I can. Or if my day-to-day reality has become too crazy, I'm going to get a sitter to watch my kids. I'm going to hire somebody to clean my house. I'm going to take away some of those responsibilities, draw those boundaries, because I need time with my crew, with my group, with my friends. Those are all things that you can do. And by doing this, this is going to potentially open up some opportunities for you to move in a new direction with your career through the connections that you'll be making. And so that's something that you'll see coming up in the next couple of years as a result of the work that you're putting into this now. Also, I should mention, just going back to Virgo, one more time really quick, if you are a Virgo, sun, moon, or rising, especially rising, with your rising sign between 0 and 5 degrees, this could be a fated, really close new friendship that comes in as a result of this eclipse, where it feels like you are meant to connect with this person and it's so important, and they are going to help to align you with your destiny. And so pay attention. Anyone who comes in right now is someone who's coming in with a karmic purpose. It's already predetermined. You decided that you wanted to connect with these people prior to this experience, prior to this lifetime. And so you want to honor that and just acknowledge that these are important, and just kind of sit back and allow things to play out. But definitely make sure you're engaging as well. All right, and for Libra and for Libra rising, this Mercury retrograde is happening in your 10th house of career and public status. There could be a lot that you have to reevaluate and go back and redo and revisit in your career and in just your work in general. There could be a lot of miscommunications, mishaps that occur in your workplace, and you might be blamed for them, or it could be due to an important partnership or something along those lines, where you're not communicating very well in partnership. I would say in work-related partnerships during this eclipse, or this entire 3-week period that Mercury's retrograde for Libras, you're not going to be communicating very well. So you want to make sure that you are double, triple, quadruple checking any work-related communication, or any communication with a business partner or somebody who you work with or work for, because that could cause some trouble for you, and you might get blamed for it, or you might blame the other person when it's not necessarily their fault, and that could cause some discord. That would be especially true for Libra rising people between 5 and 14 degrees. So just kind of be aware of that. But this is a time for you to reassess what you're doing in your career. Is this what you want? Is this the path you want to be on? Is this satisfying to you? Go inward, reevaluate that, right? And if you're a Mercury retrograde person, this could be more beneficial for you. However, there is still issues with interpersonal communication in the workplace, or in your job, or in your career path. For those, so for the new moon solar eclipse, this is also occurring in your 10th house. There's something you've been really feeling excited about pushing forward into when it comes to your career, and maybe even making a major change in your career, or a shift in the way that you do your work, that maybe you've been holding back on, or there's been so much busyness and chaos going on in your 4th house, which is the house of home and family, and there's been a lot of responsibility in that area, and you're done with it. You're ready finally to move on. You want to move into the thing that you want to move into. You want to be successful. You want to push forward into that new path, and now's the time to do it. And when you do that, things can open up for you in the future in terms of travel, higher educational pursuits, publishing. Maybe you want to publish a book or put something out there, or learn to educate others in your field, or go back and get some additional education. Maybe that's going to be part of this new career pursuit that you're jumping into head first. But you do need to assert some boundaries. Have you been slacking off and playing too much and enjoying too much pleasure and not focusing your attention on your career goals and plans? Is that what's been holding you back? You need to draw some boundaries, I think, with yourself. This could also be you needing to draw some hard boundaries with romantic partnerships that are distracting you and burdening you, and that you are taking too much responsibility for, that are preventing you from moving forward with what you want to create for yourself in your career. That's going to be a big important thing. If you want that growth, if you want that new beginning, you need to draw those hard lines in the sand. All right. And then for Scorpio and for Scorpio rising, Mercury is retrograde in your 9th house, which is the house of education, travel, connections with people in foreign countries, your beliefs about God, the universe, the world around you that frame this reality. As I discussed with Ksenia in our webinar like last week, it's also the house of your dharma, right? And so it's what you're here to create and accomplish, and all of that. It's like it's important. So this is an area right now where you're going to be doing a lot of reevaluation. What lights you up? What keeps you passionate? What gives you that perspective on life that keeps you going? This could be you reevaluating your moral and ethical value systems, your belief systems, your goals in life, your direction in life, in relationship to those goals. This is also going to be a period that I think could be actually really good for you if you are a Scorpio rising in particular, or sun or moon between 5 and 14 degrees. You're going to be rethinking and reevaluating things in a way that will be personally beneficial to you and will help you to align more completely with your goals and aspirations in life, with your direction in life. You could also get important communication or ideas that come in that give you a newfound sense of perspective, that light you up in some way. This could be you reevaluating a teaching endeavor or an educational pursuit of some kind. If you are writing something, this could be a great time for you to send things along to your editor before it goes to print and you publish it, so it can just be reevaluated and touched up on at least one more time. All of these things can be the case. This could be people from foreign countries or someone from a foreign country who's really important in your life reaching out to you from your past. That could be part of this too. The new moon, though, is happening, and this eclipse is happening in your 9th house as well. Especially if you are a Scorpio rising between 0 and 5 degrees, this is going to be a very positive eclipse energy. You're going to experience this in like the best possible way. It's going to open up all sorts of new opportunities and avenues for you. You're going to feel like rejuvenated and revitalized. It can even bring in important new relationships that guide you in a new direction in life, in a way that's powerful but not traumatic and like turbulent and like all at once or something like that. It happens gently. This energy, though, it's kind of like you want to move forward with some sort of important travel plan or some sort of important educational pursuit, or, in sharing some important information with the world, but your family ties or your home life or your living situation or your property situation in some way is preventing you from doing that. And so there's a lot of responsibility going on behind the scenes at home, and you need to draw a really hard line in the sand and say, hey, enough is enough. I can't support you in this. I can't take care of everything for you. I need you to take and carry some of this weight so I can pursue my path, so I can jump forward in a new direction. And so that's going to be part of this energy too. It could be that you're pursuing something in those areas that I just mentioned that that you might need to finalize or finish off or jump into in order to move forward into developing important things pertaining to money, especially joint income, or investments, or paying off debts or something along those lines. So that's what's going on there. All right, for Sagittarius and for Sagittarius rising. All right, so this Mercury retrograde is happening in your 8th house, which is the house of debt, joint finances, other people's money, inheritance, taxes, insurance, all of these different things. And so you might have some weird bills. I say that a lot with with wonky things going on in the 8th house, and that usually ends up being true. But you might get some strange bills or some bills from the past that come back around that you weren't necessarily counting on having to pay. You could have to reevaluate your budget, or reevaluate or reassess your debt, or maybe even think about refinancing something. This could be you having to go back and forth with communication involving taxes, your tax preparation, involving inheritance, life insurance, insurance in general, or reevaluating your joint finances in marriage. So in partnership with your husband or wife, that could be part of this as well. I feel like just a lot of back and forth and a lot of reevaluating something involving a contract, involving joint finances. That could be a big thing, or a lot of communication in that realm. This is also you kind of going back and revisiting your deepest fears and anxieties, traumas, crisis from the past, and having to kind of go inward, think it through, and reevaluate and change something moving forward to allow you greater freedom on that psychological level. The new moon energy / eclipse energy is happening in your 8th house also. And this could be like this could be like the final push or the final burst of money or the final burst of like a pursuit of money through an investment that maybe you've been kind of building on and you haven't really jumped into, or you having to start something new involving taking on a new debt. Maybe you have to take on a loan or something like that. Maybe there's something that you want to invest in, right? Maybe your husband or your wife has a new financial opportunity and you benefit from this in a lot of ways, and it frees up some energy for you to pursue something, or to let go of something that you've been holding on to with that South Node transiting Sagittarius, and to pursue something. This would be a great time for like a joint investment almost for a Sagittarius, where you're investing in something in partnership or moving forward with something in partnership that involves finances. The one thing though is that your day-to-day communication and your day-to-day mindset around everything is way burdensome. And so it could be that you're mentally taking on a lot of responsibility for other people's problems, other people's, issues. It could be that you're just mentally overloaded and you need to draw a hard line in the sand and say, I'm not going to keep reading these books. I'm not going to keep taking in too much information. It's keeping me frazzled. I don't need everyone's opinion on everything that I'm doing. I am just going to shut that out, draw that boundary, and focus on what I need to focus on. All right, and then for Capricorn and Capricorn rising, this energy of the Mercury retrograde is happening in your 7th house, which is the house of relationships, especially marriage partnerships. It's the house of agreements, contracts, any one-on-one interactions or relationships that are important to you. And so you might be reevaluating or having to kind of go back and revisit some old issues in your current partnership, or it could be a past relationship that comes back around. They contact you and you have to sort of revisit that relationship in some way. This could be you having to reevaluate important agreements or important contracts or important partnerships in some way. So you're just sort of going through this period of introspection and reassessing things. The new moon is happening also in your 7th house, and especially if you are a Capricorn rising, with your rising sign anywhere from 0 to 5 degrees, this will be impacting you hugely. This is a brand new beginning in relationships. This is like either you going through a big reset in your current partnership where you have to jump in and do something new together that feels very karmic, very important, very synchronistic, but kind of scary in an exciting way. This could involve a huge financial burden or letting go of a huge financial burden in your partnership, where you have to kind of draw a hard line in the sand and say, hey, we can't keep spending this way. We need to do this new thing. And if we want to do it together, we need the finances. We need to cut that off and say no. Or maybe you're paying for something for your partner, or paying for something in partnership, and you need to draw that hard line in the sand in order to free up that energy for those new beginnings that you need to move into right now. Issues involving finances though can definitely come up, and it can be this irritation or this sense of responsibility where it's like you're holding on to this, and maybe you're carrying it for your partner in particular. Maybe they have debt and you're like, enough's enough, you're paying this off, or I'm paying this off, and this is going to be done, and we're not going to carry this burden anymore. And in that way, you can move into something new. You can forge a new path together. So that's a lot of what's going on here. This is going to be starting something new finally, so that way you can move on. It's like you've been building to something together. Or this could be a new relationship that comes in too, where you have this like brand new, fresh start, exciting new relationship that pulls you in a whole new direction in life. That could be a romantic partnership that sticks, or it could even be like a close friendship that comes in for a period of time to show you something. But the sense is that it's meant to be. Like, you have to connect with this person. And you could have a little bit of both. Like, you might be in a marriage partnership, start something new, and then you also partner up with somebody else for something different, maybe a financial endeavor, or a business partnership, or a new friendship. You could have all of these things happening with this eclipse. All right, and for Aquarius and Aquarius rising, so there is a little bit of a different energy for Aquarius in particular here. So first and foremost, you have Mercury going retrograde, And this is going to be happening in your 6th house, which is the house of work, health, and daily routines. Mercury retrograde in the 3rd is always kind of bothersome. The 6th is also one that's a little bit more difficult because it does impact your day-to-day activities. And Mercury is the small stuff. It's those small communications. It's those small little like tasks you have to do on a day-to-day basis, especially involving your mental activity and your communication. And so a lot of those things might be prone to mishaps, mistakes, subject to a little bit of change or having to reevaluate and adjust. This is a good time to reevaluate your daily routines and kind of take a step back and look at your daily habits and whether or not they're serving you in some way. This is going to be a busy time at work, especially involving communication. Like you're going to have a flood of communication coming in and it might feel like a lot and it might be overwhelming or confusing in some way. Just kind of take a step back if you feel way too busy and you feel like there's too much going on, before you send that message, before you send that email, before you move forward with that new thing, because there's like a frazzled energy here. It's like, oh my goodness, I don't even know what's what because there's so much going on. The other thing that's going on here is that you have a new moon in the sign of Aquarius, and this is going to be, especially if you are an Aquarius sun, moon, or rising, between 0 and 3 degrees, because there's a 3-degree orb here with these inconjunctions. This is you taking on way too much personal responsibility for other people's work or for your work life in general. It's like, how are you going to have the experience in your work that you desire if you're holding on to all of this stuff? If you're carrying all the responsibilities for your coworkers, if you're carrying all the responsibilities for showing up in service for somebody that you care about, maybe you're dealing with health issues of like a family member or a friend, and you've just taken on way too much of the burden and you are neglecting your own responsibilities as a result. Yes, it's great to show up in service, but at what expense, right? And how long can you maintain that? This is really looking at, on a day-to-day basis, the responsibilities and the things that you're doing to support people, especially. So this is service, which is good. It's good to show up in service, but there's some karma that's been cleared already in the area of service that you kind of need to let go of and move on from in order to have a new beginning, a fresh start, to have the health that you desire, to have the career or the work situation that you desire, to have your day-to-day life look like what you want it to. You have to let go of something. You have to draw some boundaries with those responsibilities. All right, for Pisces and for Pisces rising. So Mercury retrograde, this is actually some nice energy for Pisces across the board, I would say, with these eclipses, or for the most part, some nice energy for Pisces. Mercury retrograde in the 5th house. I love when Mercury retrogrades in the 5th house. This is a really great time to reevaluate and get back in touch with your joy, with the things that you love to do because you love to do them. This is going to benefit you very personally and in your partnerships, especially your romantic partnerships. And this is going to be especially the case if your sun, moon, or rising is anywhere from 5 to 14 degrees. This is like, hey, remember that thing that I used to do that I used to really love and it used to make me feel so happy? Why did I stop doing that thing? I'm going to do that thing again. That's kind of the energy of Mercury retrograde in the 5th house. It's like you have these ideas and you have these like blasts from the past when it comes to just things that are popping into your mind or that are coming back up in your reality, where you lost touch or you lost sight of something that brought meaning and purpose and passion and joy into your life. And you need to jump into that, right? You need to reintegrate that in some way or revisit it. The other thing that's going on here is that the new moon solar eclipse is also happening in your 5th house. This could be a brand new beginning, a fresh start, something that comes in that's fated, karmic, maybe very unexpected, related to an important passion, it could even be that you've been kind of building toward wanting to move in this direction of maybe starting a new business, right? Doing something that you're passionate about and pursuing that much more fully. And now's the time where you're finally ready to move forward. It's the last chance to do it and you're gonna jump in. This could also be an energy where you could, this is sometimes when you have eclipses in the 5th house, it could be a pregnancy, usually unexpected, or it's like a fated pregnancy, where it comes in all of a sudden, like some sort of fated energy with children. In some way, there could be also a new beginning involving your children if you have children, where something really out of nowhere comes up and changes things for you, probably in a positive way. But you're going to have to let go of something. So this is an energy where if you want to connect with your joy, if you want to experience these new beginnings, if you want to pursue your passion projects, you're going to have to let something go. There's a karmic energy from the past that's been weighing on you subconsciously, and getting in touch with what that is going to require quite a bit of introspection. But once you find it, like, there is an ending that really needs to happen. There is a boundary you need to draw with your past, or a boundary that you need to draw with like the collective energies even, or maybe it's like you've been focusing too much on, you know, your spiritual practices and what's going on sort of on this subconscious realm. And, you know, even though that can serve you in some ways, you need to let go of something. Maybe there's a spiritual practice or discipline that has not been serving you, and that's been ungrounding you in some way. So there's a lot that can be going on there. The other thing too is if you are a Pisces rising especially, but also sun or moon, anywhere from 25 to 30 degrees, this might be bringing on a different kind of change. Like, yeah, there could be changes involving children, involving your passions, involving pursuing these really exciting new endeavors here, or connecting with your joy in a new, fated, karmic, exciting way, or romance even. There's also an energy here where you're kind of thinking about what you want behind the scenes a little bit more, maybe letting go of something involving a career pursuit in order to move into what you want to come home to. Maybe you're thinking about a move, or maybe there are changes coming in your family dynamic. I would say with this Pisces energy, between everything that's going on here, there could be a lot of energy around children or your children and changes going on in that realm. It doesn't mean that you're going to necessarily have a child. Not every Pisces is going to have that experience, but something changing in that realm, especially if you already have children or if you're thinking about having children. This could be something changing involving your relationship to your parents, to your family members. This could be a very physical change involving a move and, you know, a career change happening sort of in correspondence with one another. But it's like something is going on behind the scenes. There's a big change going on behind the scenes that's going to reverberate across your entire life. It's going to change important agreements and relationships. It's going to change who you are and the way that you view yourself and the way that you engage with the world. It's going to change your career path and your public status. And it's especially going to change your family life and your home environment. And so again, Pisces at the end degrees will be feeling that part of the energy the most, although it'll be present to a lesser extent for all Pisces rising sun moon signs. All right. So that is my forecast for all 12 signs. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope that you found it helpful. And if you did, please be sure to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and share it with your friends if you feel like they'll benefit from some of this information, because we are in the midst of a lot of change. And I just want as many people to get the guidance they need as possible. So if you feel like they can get that, definitely share. And I will see you guys next week. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.